Discover the unexpected love, how 5 stunning outfits couldn't compete with her amazing smile. Sarah stood in her small kitchen, the warm summer air seeping through the window, carrying the scent of her latest culinary attempt, an apple pie cooling on the counter. Just moments ago, she shared a laugh with Emma, her spirited 6-year-old, who had boundless enthusiasm that often brought light to Sarah's lingering doubts. But now, as she gazed at the pile of fabric scattered across the table, her heart sank. There was a stark contrast between the comfort of home and the unforgiving reality beyond her picket fence. The local diner where she worked consumed her days, the clattering of plates a constant reminder of her monotonous existence, while her dreams of vibrant fashion designs felt like mere whispers in a world that demanded she stay in her lane. The town's elite had made it clear, Sarah was the poor girl with unrealistic aspirations. They watched with disdain as if creativity was reserved for those with trust funds and designer handbags. Doubt began to weave itself into her thoughts, intertwining with the threads she so desperately tried to stitch into life. The upcoming local fashion showcase loomed like a specter, taunting her with the fear of exposure, a chance to shine or to be ridiculed. What if her designs didn't captivate? What if, beneath the bright lights, her hard work faded into obscurity? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as the pressures mounted, a jarring jolt entered Sarah's life in the form of Thomas, a jaded fashion editor from New York. His handsome features and weary smile ignited something deep within her, stirring aspirations she had tucked away. As they shared their stories, Sarah's heartbeat quickened. Here was a man who understood the struggle of chasing one's dreams. Yet, with each shared moment, the whispers of her town echoed louder, drowning her spirited thoughts in nagging self-doubt. Could she really connect with someone like him? Did he see her for her talent or merely as the poor girl in distress? Now, as she sat, long nights blurring into creative moments beside Thomas, tension brewed fiercely. Her designs began to take shape, each piece telling an unfiltered story of authenticity. But as the showcase drew near, the town's judgment felt suffocating. Her rival lurked in shadows, ready to strike. Was it just jealousy, or a more sinister betrayal? On a night filled with hopeful pieces that felt like destiny, an act of sabotage shattered her fragile confidence, spreading shadows where dreams should have blossomed. As despair gathered, Sarah found herself tucked beneath the weight of fear, hesitation gripping her. Had she wasted precious time on something unattainable? The showcase called, but so did trepidation. Would love triumph over societal confines, or would the fear of rejection dim her brightness forever? The night unfolded ahead of her, tangled with possibility, but uncertainty loomed as she prepared to step into the limelight. In a town where appearances dictated worth, it was not just a presentation, it was a moment that could redefine her life or bury her beneath expectations. As dawn broke, colors erupted from the horizon, seemingly mocking Sarah's heavy heart. The light crept into her kitchen, illuminating the chaos of fabric and sketches still cluttering the table. Each piece represented a fragment of her spirit now overshadowed by anxiety. Could she summon the courage necessary to reclaim her ambition, or would she let fear dictate her future? Gazing out of the window, suffocated by possibilities and doubts, Sarah wondered if she could turn despair into something empowering. This evolving emotion fueled an unexpected resolve. Perhaps she could craft something even greater from the shards of her shattered confidence. Ignoring the insistent whispers of the townsfolk, she envisioned an alternative. The first piece could start with bold, vibrant colors that echoed her personality, something that spoke of resilience against the norm. As she stitched, her movements transformed from hesitation to determination. She envisioned the feel of the fabric between her fingers, the potential of each created form. What began as a struggle transformed into a dance, a celebration of the very essence of who she was. Design after design, her doubts began to blur into the background, replaced with visions of a future she longed to actualize. If she was going to risk it all at the showcase, she would do so on her terms. The morning slipped into evening, and the townspeople whispered endlessly about the day's showcase. Conversations buzzed with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Sarah knew she would need more than just solid designs. She needed to confront her fears head-on, challenge the preconceived notions of her small-town critics. But as she prepared her final pieces, her thoughts drifted back to Thomas. His support felt genuine, yet what if it, too, was just a fleeting moment tainted by pity? In a moment of clarity, she took a deep breath and decided to reach out to him. She hesitated over her phone, heart racing as she thumbed out a message. "Can we talk?" The uncertainty of his response left her breathless. But she soon received a reply, an invitation to meet at the cafe before the showcase. Suddenly, her heart surged with mixed feelings. Anticipation clashed with insecurity. Would he remind her of her inadequacies, or empower her to step boldly into the future? The encounter would not just be about her feelings for him, it was pivotal, as it would also reveal her own strength and vulnerability. As she walked to the cafe, determination flared within her. She wasn't just going to present her fashions, she was going to reclaim her narrative, reshape the story of the poor girl into that of a rising designer. Walking through the familiar streets, she realized she had to confront the very doubts that had stifled her. The judgment from others only mattered if she allowed it to. With each step, the fabric of her self-worth began to strengthen, weaving a tapestry of hope, causing her to stand taller. Her spirit revived. Upon arriving at the cafe, nerves twisted in her stomach. She spotted Thomas at a corner table, looking out the window, something thoughtful behind his eyes. What would she say? Would he see the confident woman ready to own her dreams, or would the shadow of doubt still linger? As she approached him, everything fell silent in her mind. This moment had power, it was a stepping stone. Whatever doubts loomed, the time had come for her to face them. But just as he turned to greet her with that warm smile, the most unexpected question dangled in the air, waiting to unravel everything she thought she knew about life and herself. Sarah's heart skipped a beat at the sight of Thomas's warm smile, but an aftershock of anxiety rippled through her. It was as if the universe held its breath, challenging her to embrace the moment. He gestured for her to sit, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern. The vibrancy of the cafe around them felt superficial compared to the intense focus of their interaction. "So, what's on your mind?" Thomas asked, his tone gentle, encouraging her to bare her soul. She opened her mouth, words hovering uncertainly, before she caught herself. Instead of a complaint or a confession, she wanted to share her dreams, what her designs truly meant to her, without the weight of public opinion pressing down on her. "I'm really excited about the showcase tomorrow," she finally managed, channeling her determination into her response. "I want to show everyone what I can do, what I'm passionate about." His brows furrowed slightly, and she noticed a flicker of doubt cross his face. It encouraged her to dig deeper. "I've been so afraid of how people see me," she continued. "But I realized that I've been giving their opinions too much power. I want to redefine my narrative, I want to create something that represents who I am. I see the beauty in the struggle." Thomas leaned back, the weight of her words settling between them. For a brief moment, he seemed lost in thought. This wasn't just about fashion, it was about courage. She started sharing the inspirations behind her latest designs, how she transformed pain into fabric, turning her struggles into color. As she spoke passionately, she noticed a change in Thomas's demeanor. His eyes lit up, absorbing her enthusiasm. This realization changed everything. She was not merely conversing, she was reclaiming a part of herself that had been buried under fear and self-doubt. She was empowered. "Wow, Sarah. I didn't realize how deeply driven you are," he said, admiration lacing his voice. His words hit her like a soft breeze, rekindling warmth in her chest. "You have a unique view of the world. I think your designs will resonate." His encouragement felt like a shield, reinforcing her resolution. But as they continued to discuss her designs, a silent question lingered beneath the surface. Would he see her struggles as merely a part of a story, or as a burden that could define her? Could she entertain the hope that he might be more than a friend? The conversation shifted slightly back to him, and she found herself asking him about his aspirations. His answers revealed his own vulnerabilities, and with each revelation, Sarah felt a kinship forming. They were both fighting their battles, but could their journeys intertwine without sacrifice? Just as the cafe felt like a sanctuary, a shadow of doubt crept back in. "Do you really think I can do this?" she asked hesitantly, testing the waters of their budding connection. Engaging with their fears, rather than dodging them, was a path she needed to tread carefully. "Yes," he replied firmly, his gaze unwavering. "You absolutely can. You have to believe it yourself. This isn't about what others think, it's about what you create from within." His response washed over her like fresh paint on a dull canvas, emboldening her. Maybe it wasn't just about the showcase, it was about forging ahead into an unknown future filled with possibilities. But a nagging part of her still worried that she could stumble, that the triumph she felt now might vanish in an instant at the hands of criticism and doubt. As they wrapped up their conversation, Sarah found herself questioning not only the perceptions of others but also the newfound connection developing between them. Was this genuine encouragement, or was she romanticizing a fleeting moment? With the sunlight streaming through the cafe window, they reached a moment of shared silence. It was pregnant with prospective decisions, the weight of what was unsaid hanging in the air, and she could feel the intensity of unvoiced feelings. Just as Sarah contemplated voicing her deeper fears, he leaned in closer, and a pivotal moment approached. One that would hinge on opening herself up entirely. Would she risk the rejection that came from revealing her true self to Thomas? "Before tomorrow," he said softly, cutting through her scramble of thoughts, "there is something I've been meaning to tell you." With those words lingering in the air like a drumroll, each one poised to ignite a storm of emotions, Sarah's heart raced. Would this be the moment she claimed her narrative, or would it shatter it anew? The soft murmur of the cafe faded into the background as Sarah's mind raced, caught in the gravitational pull of Thomas's words. There was an electric tension in the air, a moment poised delicately between possibility and uncertainty. She could feel her heart pounding, reverberating in her ears, drowning out the sounds of clinking cups and soft laughter. "Before tomorrow, there is something I've been meaning to tell you." Thomas's voice was steady, yet each syllable seemed to hang in the air, amplifying the weight of his unspoken thought. Did he mean to confess something personal, or perhaps share an insight that could shift the dynamic between them? Sarah held her breath, waiting for him to continue, yet whatever he had in mind also brought a swirl of anxiety. As much as she valued their conversation, she was all too aware that this moment could define their friendship, or perhaps something deeper. What did she want? Was she ready to intertwine her life with his? Her courage surged, she felt emboldened by her recent revelations. "What is it, Thomas?" she dared to ask, each word infused with a blend of anticipation and resolve. She was ready to confront not only her fears but also the possibility of something profound, a connection that transcended friendship. He leaned in closer, and for a heartbeat, the world outside the cafe ceased to exist. It was just them, standing at the threshold of vulnerability. "I've been thinking about your designs, how passionate they make you. It's inspiring. I see so much potential in you, but I want you to know that it starts with believing in yourself," he said, eyes piercing into hers. The weight of his words shifted from anticipation to raw, affirming clarity. In encouraging her, he had unwittingly gifted her a sort of vision. It wasn't solely about the showcase or validation from others, it was about discovering her own power and owning it completely. His encouragement ignited a fire within her, one she had nearly extinguished with doubt, but despite the warmth spreading through her chest, her self-doubt bubbled to the surface once more. "But how do I silence the noise in my head?" she questioned, her vulnerability surfacing again. "What if I don't live up to expectations?" "Expectations can be chains or they can be wings," he countered, his voice steady. "It's about how you choose to interpret them. If you let go of what others think, you'll find your true voice." Sarah contemplated his perspective, her mind racing with the notion of a possible shift in her approach to both her designs and her life. If she could transform external expectations into something motivational rather than burdensome, how liberating would that be? Thoughts of her designs surged in her mind. She envisioned fabrics woven with power, colors bursting with potential. Maybe I could incorporate that into my showcase, she mused, excitement thickening her tone. Instead of just showcasing my work, I could tell a story that resonates with overcoming doubt. His smile widened at her realization, and just like that, a spark of collaboration hung in the atmosphere. Absolutely, Sarah. That's something worth sharing. By being vulnerable with your audience, you'll transcend the surface and deepen the connection. Momentum surged within her, revitalized by the exchange, and yet another wave of realization washed over her. If her designs could tell her story, why couldn't she do the same with her heart? The thought propelled her into deeper contemplation, and as that realization grew, the implications for both her work and her relationship with Thomas began to crystallize. Maybe I need to bring some of that vulnerability into this moment, she thought, emboldening herself further. Thomas, I appreciate how you see me, she began, her voice dipping slightly as she embraced the courage she felt swelling inside. There's something I want to share too. It's about how I perceive not just my work, but this connection with you. Before she could unravel the tangled web of emotions wrestling within her, the cafe door swung open, sending a gust of wind in, and reality crashed over her like a wave. A familiar figure stepped inside Clara, the leading designer who had questioned Sarah's abilities in the past. Suddenly, the gentle bubble of camaraderie burst, and Sarah was thrust back into the external chaos. As Clara's gaze swept the room, settling onto Sarah and Thomas, a chill seeped into Sarah's spine. What would happen when Clara approached? Would she shatter this burgeoning connection before it could fully blossom? Sarah's resolve began battling against the impulse to retreat. The moment was no longer just about her feelings or her designs. It had just become a test of her newly reclaimed power. The air around Sarah seemed to thicken, as if the universe had conspired to freeze this moment of vulnerability. Clara, with her confident stride and discerning gaze, radiated authority that sent a tremor of uncertainty through Sarah. Here was not just a formidable rival from her past but a figure who had unwittingly draped shadows over her aspirations. Sarah's heart raced, weighed down by the imminent confrontation. Clara's sharp presence forced her to confront the very insecurities she had spent so much energy trying to dismantle. Would Thomas see her crumble? Could he witness her slip back into the remnants of self-doubt just when she was starting to reclaim her voice? The excitement of what she could say, how she could express herself, now felt perilously close to slipping away. Clara's gaze lingered a beat too long, assessing. I didn't expect to find you here, Sarah. Sharing creative space with a friend? Her tone was layered, expertly woven with the dual threads of sarcasm and curiosity. Thomas and I were just. Sarah began, determination flaring within her. She caught a glimpse of his encouraging smile, a lifeline buoying her rising resolve. Discussing design ideas. The words hung in the air, light yet dense with defiance. Interesting, Clara replied, her lips curling into a condescending smile. I hope you're not getting too carried away. Design is about competence, not just enthusiasm. It was a jab, a small dagger aimed at her self-confidence. Clara didn't just challenge her, she was a personification of all her fears: fear of inadequacy, fear of the critical eye. In that moment, Sarah felt her facade cracking beneath the weight of those words, yet something deeper stirred inside her, a resistance she hadn't expected. Gathering her thoughts, Sarah questioned everything she'd learned in that moment with Thomas. His words echoed in her mind, whispering the importance of her perspective. Competence is built through self-belief, Clara. It's not just about skill. It's about passion, about telling a story, she replied, her voice unwavering despite the tremor in her core. Something changed in the air as she spoke. While Clara raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by Sarah's boldness, Sarah felt the warmth of strength flow through her veins. Each word became a stepping stone, propelling her toward clarity. She could reclaim her narrative not only in design but within herself as well. Without losing momentum, Sarah continued, I want to create something authentic. I want to share the journey of overcoming doubt. This is my heart, and it's worth something. The change wasn't just a spark, it was a roaring flame of conviction, fueled by the exchange with Thomas. Clara's expression morphed from amusement to scrutiny, assessing the sincerity behind Sarah's words. For a brief moment, vulnerability painted across Sarah's features transfixed Clara, as if she were questioning her own assumptions. This was a revelation. Sarah realized she could create impact by standing firm. The cafe was alive with noise, but within her, there was sudden quiet. The swirl of self-doubt and external expectations was fading. She was choosing courage instead of retreat. Keep your enthusiasm, Sarah, Clara finally said, her tone dipped in grudging respect. Perhaps it won't hurt as much to remember your past. With those parting words, she turned and walked away, leaving a charged silence in her wake. As Clara exited, the tension shifted, the cafe returning to its familiar hum of voices. Sarah felt liberated but also raw, as if the exchange had peeled away layers that had long shielded her from vulnerability, and now she was exposed, yet oddly powerful. Thomas leaned in closer, his eyes brightening with admiration and relief. You stood your ground, he breathed, a proud smile surfacing. That was incredible. I had no choice, she replied, the tremor in her voice now replaced with a steadier rhythm of confidence. I realized I can't let anyone's doubts define me anymore. She felt a climactic rebirth, ready to embrace what lay ahead in her designs and relationships alike. The fear that had gripped her moments before faded into the background, now transformed into motivation, yet what remained a significant challenge was how to harness this new strength moving forward, especially with the showcase looming ahead. The stakes had never felt higher, and her passion had ignited a fire to create something that would resonate. Sarah could sense that her journey wasn't merely about overcoming her fear but defining herself in the process. With newfound resolve, she planned each step, visualizing the designs she had once hesitated to share, but as she began to feel ready for the next chapter of her career, a sudden flicker of doubt whispered at the edges of her mind. What if Clara returned, more determined than ever? What if new challenges threatened to disrupt her delicate balance of empowerment and creativity? The thought loomed over her, leaving a lingering question: could she remain steadfast in her newfound belief, even in the face of formidable expectation? The next few days unfurled in a blur, each one thick with anticipation and the pressure of expectations. Sarah buried herself in her designs, sketching furiously, and pouring every ounce of her evolving self into the fabric of her work. The ink flowed easily across the pages as newfound clarity unfurled within her, the once intimidating white space now transformed into a canvas of possibility. However, amid this creative surge, the specter of Clara loomed, a constant reminder of the past Sarah was trying to redefine. Clara's brusque dismissal echoed in her mind, each syllable a ghost of doubt that haunted her enthusiasm. Each time Sarah glanced at her draft's interpretations of courage and resilience wrapped in vibrant hues, she wrestled with thoughts of Clara's implications about competence. Would her designs hold up under scrutiny? This dichotomy became unbearable during a late-night brainstorming session with Thomas. They sat side by side in the cafe, surrounded by scattered papers and half-finished sketches, the atmosphere charged with creativity. He engaged Sarah in conversations that gradually delved deeper, exploring the intricacies of her ideas. Yet, every insight he offered opened a floodgate of questions. Were her designs good enough? Was she being too naive in her approach? I think you should really embrace the imperfections in your work, Thomas suggested one evening, leaning back, his eyes thoughtfully studying her latest sketches. They make it unique. They tell your story. Perfect. Story. Unique. Each word hung in the air like an unresolved chord. Sarah swallowed hard, it felt like an avalanche of pressure crashing down. The very definitions of success began to twist in her mind. Could they really coexist with her fear of Clara? During moments of reflection, while wrestling with this confusion, Sarah often spiraled into self-imposed isolation, distancing herself from Thomas, who had become a crucial ally. She felt torn between budding creativity and the tether to her old insecurities. She yearned for his affirmation yet shied away from full vulnerability. Then, the day came when clarity seemed to crystallize just as uncertainty threatened to stifle her work again. The showcase was less than a week away, and Sarah found herself confronted with a critical choice not just in designs but in character. She realized that she had to confront Clara again, not in the shadows of inferiority but in the glow of her newfound empowerment. "Why do you let her dictate your worth?" she whispered to herself one night, tracing a line in the sketchbook as if rewriting her narrative. "You fought too hard to get to this point." The resolve surged within her. She spent the next hours honing her pieces, an affirmation of her story layered with her struggles and triumphs. What had come first as a simple project became a tapestry of her journey, the laughter, the tears, the moments of doubt intertwined with sparks of determination. Yet, as days flew by, another layer unfurled. The stakes were not just artistic but also personal. While the designs took shape, doubts about revealing her vulnerabilities to Thomas gnawed at her. Had she been as open with him as he had been with her? Did he perceive her as weak because of her struggle? Would he understand the depth of her journey if she let him in? As the showcase loomed closer, Sarah stood at a precipice, to remain vulnerable or to shield herself behind barriers built over years of insecurity. The thrill of presenting her work danced along the edges of her mind, competing with fears of rejection, not just from Clara but from Thomas too. Each mundane moment echoed the weight of anticipation, biting tighter as time marched relentlessly onward. The pressure was palpable. Then came the unsettling night before the presentation, sleep eluding her as thoughts spiraled chaotically. She wrestled with questions in the dark, uncertain shadows creeping in. Was she ready to own her narrative completely? Amidst this inner turmoil, a clear realization hit her: the moment of truth was upon her, and it would demand more than just artistic ability. Resolved, she picked up her phone. Her fingers hovered over the screen, anxiety dripping off each potential text. How would she confront Thomas tomorrow? Would this mark a breakthrough or a setback? With new determination, she sent a message: "Can we talk before the showcase? There's something important I need to share." As the send button clicked, she felt a surge of uncertainty mixed with anticipation. Would she find the strength to reveal her true self in the morning light, even if it felt terrifying? Tomorrow, all would be revealed in ways that might shift everything she thought she knew. But that dawning day was looming heavy, shadows cast by not just the night but the doubts she still carried. What awaited her in the morning? Would she embrace vulnerability and redefine what it meant to be competent in a world that frequently measured success by harsh standards? In that moment, everything hung in the balance, ready to unravel or be stitched together anew. The following morning was cloaked in a thick veil of fog that seemed to echo Sarah's internal tumult. As she stood before her full-length mirror, she scrutinized her reflection with fierce determination and lingering doubt. The fresh pastel hues of her garments, a bold expression of her evolving style, felt at odds with the turbulence within her. Each piece of clothing was like a slice of her heart laid bare, an intimate revelation she shivered to expose. With the message sent, she found herself oscillating between anticipation and dread. Would Thomas understand? Would he see past the surface? This moment felt monumental, a chance not only to reveal her designs but to share the fabric of her fears and victories, stitched meticulously into each creation. She swiped at her phone, searching for distractions, scrolling listlessly until a notification chimed: 8 a.m. meeting with Thomas. Her heart raced, a reminder of the conversation looming close and unavoidable. She glanced at the clock. It was only 30 minutes away. As she prepared herself for the encounter, Sarah reflected on her past interactions with Thomas. Each moment they shared had been intense yet laden with unspoken words. He saw her art but perhaps not the internal battles that often transformed the process into something nearly unbearable. Could their collaborations usher in a partnership that was not just creative but deeply personal? The cafe loomed like an oasis, drawing her footsteps closer with each passing second. Inside, the warmth enveloped her, but it only added to the heat brewing in her chest. Contemplating how to open up felt like standing at the edge of a precipice, the height dizzying. If she leaped, would she soar or fall? "Hey, you made it." Thomas greeted her with a bright smile that momentarily dispelled her anxiety. His easygoing nature felt like both an invitation and a challenge. The tension twisted deep inside, threatening to surface. They settled into a cozy corner table, surrounded by the comforting aroma of brewed coffee and pastries. As they engaged in small talk, Sarah noticed the way his eyes sparkled with genuine interest, yet each laugh and nod felt like a reminder of the deeper conversation she needed to navigate. Plucking up the courage, Sarah placed her hands on the table, grounding herself amidst the whirlpool of emotions. "Thomas," she started, her voice soft yet resolute, "I've been thinking a lot about my designs, and about us." He leaned forward, curiosity evident in his expression. "What has been on your mind?" The warmth of his gaze fueled her courage. "I've been hesitant, not just about my work but about sharing where my inspiration comes from. It's tied to who I am, my struggles, my growth." She took a deep breath, feeling the words gather strength within her. "I want to embrace the imperfections and let the story come through. But I'm worried about how you'd perceive that." His brow furrowed, and she could see the gears turning in his mind. "Sarah, I can only imagine how hard that must be. But your journey is part of what makes your art so compelling. Why hide it?" His response hit like a gentle breeze, refreshing yet potent. It sparked a slow realization inside. As she unwrapped her fears layer by layer, unveiling the experiences that shaped her, she began to recognize the power of vulnerability not as a weakness, but as a raw strength. She saw that in sharing her truth, she was not just revealing herself to Thomas but also reclaiming her narrative from the shadows of doubt. Just as the conversation deepened, an unexpected voice broke into their ether, a familiar cutting sound. Clara stepped into the cafe, her presence seizing the attention of everyone around. Sarah's heart plummeted. The air felt charged with an intensity, her earlier surge of openness faltering under the resurfacing specter of doubt. The impending confrontation cast a new shadow over the revelation she had been preparing for. "Let's get ready for what's to come," Sarah whispered to herself, bracing for Clara's gaze, which now locked onto her. The nervous energy thrummed within, both exhilarating and terrifying. The moment had arrived to either embrace the ambiguity of her journey or let Clara's presence reclaim the authority over her self-worth. Would she find her voice amid old echoes? Would vulnerability redefine the confines of her worth in this pivotal moment? The stakes felt irrevocably high. Sarah faced Clara, the specter of her past, and yet, she was no longer just a frightened artist. She was stepping into her power, ready to ensure her story would not be rewritten or diminished. The cafe, once a sanctuary, instantly transformed into a battleground as Clara glided toward them, her heels tapping against the floor with unnerving confidence. A sip of coffee nearly slipped from Sarah's grasp, the cup trembling as she balanced the rush of anxiety and anger. Memories of their past rivalry flared to life, igniting insecurity in an instant. How could she hold on to her newfound strength now? "Sarah. Fancy seeing you here," Clara's voice rang out, smooth and condescending. She acted as if she were stepping into a casual gathering, but for Sarah, the air crackled with tension. "And with Thomas? I didn't know you two were so close." Each word dripped with amusement, a subtle jab that left Sarah momentarily speechless. Sarah barely managed a smile, her heartbeat thudding audibly in her ears. Here was Clara madly successful, polished, and infuriatingly perfect, casting shadows on her resolve. But the transformation within Sarah didn't allow room for bitterness today. Instead, it pushed her toward a critical decision. As difficult as it was, she needed to reclaim the narrative. "Clara," she began, her voice steady despite the rising temperature in her chest, "I was just sharing my designs with Thomas. It's been hard for me to ask for feedback." Sarah gambled on the strength of her words, unleashing the honesty she knew she had to uphold. Clara's eyebrows arched as if Sarah's statement were the most amusing thing she'd heard. "Oh, darling, are you still playing the shy artist? It must be exhausting trying to be someone you're not." Her words bruised, and for a moment, doubt crept back in. But Sarah steeled herself, breathing deeply. She had to rise above. Actually, I'm learning different ways to express my art, ways that connect more genuinely with who I am. Thomas's insight is valuable, to me, she replied, her resolve sharpening with every syllable. The vulnerability she had been cultivating flared into a blaze of confidence. Disarming expectations, she embraced her creative journey fully, unfurling the layers she had tried to hide. "Oh, I see. How exciting for you," Clara responded, though the edge in her voice was unmistakable. "But I think you might want to ensure your story translates into sales. That's what really counts, doesn't it?" Enough was enough. Sarah found her footing, tilting her chin up. "Art is about more than that, Clara. It's about authenticity, and I won't let you diminish what I'm building just to fit your narrative." The words felt liberating, leaving her breathless amid the confrontation. Thomas, who had been watching intently, finally interjected, "Sarah's right. Her vision is powerful and deserves respect. Don't confuse commercial success with true artistry." A silence enveloped the table, punctuated only by the soft clatter of cups around them. Clara looked stunned, her authority dimming. It was a shift, a crack in the facade that unsettled the tension in the air. The moment hung thick with potential. Sarah recognized the importance of this exchange. She was no longer merely confronting Clara, she was challenging her own ingrained belief that comparison dictated value. No longer did she need to shrink under the weight of someone else's expectations. The brief exhilaration surged within her, a realization that her voice had power, that her art originated in the authenticity of her own experiences. In standing up to Clara, Sarah also stood up for herself. A victory was unfolding, albeit quietly, like the horizon beneath the fog slowly lifting. But before their conversation could turn, Clara schooled her features back into a mask of indifference. "Well, I hope your designs can withstand the scrutiny of the market, then," she replied, her tone flickering between venomous and playful. She turned, tossing her hair over her shoulder, the last note of a melody that brought both comfort and concern. The retreating figure of Clara felt like a weight lifted, but also a reminder of the unpredictable nature of relationships and growth. Sarah, poised and aware, turned her attention back to Thomas, who was regarding her with unmasked admiration. "I didn't know you had that in you," he said, his voice low with sincerity, restoring a warmth that Clara had momentarily distorted. "That was remarkable. I've been discovering a lot lately." "It's freeing," Sarah replied, her heart still racing but now with a different energy, a sense of liberation. This was just a piece of an ongoing journey, a chapter in the story of her evolution, one that she felt hungry to explore further, yet as excitement coursed through her, a new worry crept in. This confrontation might have only been the beginning. What would Clara do next? With each decision weighed against her past and the uncertainty of her future, Sarah's journey was just beginning, the stakes higher than ever. The fog had lifted enough to reveal the first glimmers of sunlight, and with it came the realization that each step required not just courage, but renewed clarity. What awaited her beyond the final horizon would demand even greater strength. If she was to navigate this shift, she would need a plan. What path would she carve through the landscape of her life, and how far was she willing to go to protect her newfound power? The weight of the moment lingered even after Clara's departure, pressing against Sarah's shoulders. Her heart pounded with a mix of exhilaration and fear, emotions intertwined like threads in a tapestry. As she absorbed Thomas's admiration, she realized this was no longer just about confronting Clara, it was about stepping into a new narrative, her narrative. "What's next, then?" Thomas asked, leaning in slightly, his curiosity piqued. "Are you going to showcase your designs?" Sarah paused, considering his question. The idea had always been a distant dream, lurking in the shadows of her uncertainty, but now it felt tantalizingly close. "Maybe it's time," she replied, the thought igniting something inside her, a spark of ambition that had been dormant for too long. The cafe hummed with life around them, the barista calling out drink orders while laughter danced in the air. But for Sarah, the world had narrowed into focus. "I want to hold my own event," she murmured, envisioning a space filled with her art, each piece a reflection of her journey, barriers broken and identities reclaimed. I want to share my work on my own terms. A flicker of excitement flashed in Thomas's eyes. That's a brilliant idea. You have to do it. I can help you with planning. The enormity of the undertaking weighed heavily on her mind, yet beneath the apprehension surged a powerful tide of desire to create and connect. It meant more than just presenting her art, it was a commitment to herself, a declaration that she would no longer allow the past or anyone else's perceptions to define her. I'll need to figure out logistics, a location, maybe even a theme, Sarah said, speaking her thoughts aloud. I want it to truly resonate with people. Her passion flowed freely as she sketched an invisible blueprint in her mind, each layer a step towards solidifying her vision. As they discussed the potential ideas for the event, Sarah felt invigorated by the possibilities. She could call upon her network, seek collaborations, even incorporate storytelling elements that brought her designs to life. What had once seemed like a whimsical thought now pulled at the edges of her reality, daring her to make it tangible. Sarah, I believe in you, Thomas said firmly. This is your moment to shine. Don't hold back. His steadfast support bolstered her confidence. The shadows of Clara's remarks faded into the background, overshadowed by the bright light of her goals. Sarah's determination grew stronger, tempered by the awareness that each step forward might still lead to unpredictable challenges. But it was essential to remain steadfast, both in her purpose and in her growth. Clara wouldn't stop, she would undoubtedly put obstacles in Sarah's path again. Would the confrontation serve as a catalyst for more aggression? The uncertainty loomed, but now it was merely a component of a larger picture. Returning home later that day, Sarah felt a sense of clarity wash over her. She began sketching new ideas for both her art and the event, her fingers moving quickly across the page, heart racing with creativity. With each stroke, she dismantled the barriers that had confined her. No longer would she concern herself with others' judgments, she would let her art speak without reservation, yet as her confidence blossomed, whispers of doubt seeped in. What if no one showed up? What if the event turned out to be a disaster? Despite the battle within, Sarah insisted these thoughts be acknowledged but not heeded. As she finalized her evening, a determination settled within her, she would confront her insecurities directly. Sarah would master both her craft and the narrative she found herself creating. The emergence of her voice marked a definitive shift from the shadow of Clara's rivalry toward the front of her own narrative. What awaited her as she planned her event would require even more than she thought she possessed. It was a beginning that hinted at greater tests of resilience and artistry. Would her bold step into the spotlight ultimately crown her with the validation she sought, or would it unravel? Threads of her journey held together by newfound courage. The path ahead shimmered with both peril and promise, each twist and turn ripe for discovery. The thought took root in her mind. How far was she really willing to go to claim her place as an artist, one who would be seen and heard, regardless of the shadows cast before her? The showcase had arrived, illuminating the town like a beacon. Sarah stood backstage, enveloped by the buzz of anticipation and the weight of her journey. Her heart pounded, a rhythmic echo of strength and vulnerability converging as she prepared to unveil her collection. The vibrant colors she had meticulously crafted represented more than just fabric. They were chapters of her narrative, tangible proof of her evolution from doubt to determination. As she took one last glance in the mirror, adjustments were trivial compared to the profound change within. Each piece reflected her journey, bold, flawed, and undeniably authentic. She inhaled the aroma of her dreams, prepared just for this moment, a fusion of fear and excitement dancing in her veins. The curtain lifted, and the light splashed over the runway. Sarah stepped into the spotlight, feeling the heat of countless eyes focused on her. The initial thrill coursed through her like electricity. Would they understand? Every anxious thought danced at the fringes, but they faltered when met with her resolve. Today was not about proving their perceptions wrong, it was about celebrating herself. With each step, a newfound power surged within her. The designs flowed around her like a second skin, stories woven into the very fabric of each ensemble. Sarah smiled, drawing from the energy of her daughter, Emma, and Thomas, who occupied the front row, their support illuminating her resolve even further. This was a gift to herself, not just a performance but an affirmation of her journey. As model strode down the runway wearing her designs, murmurs of admiration replaced anxious whispers. The vibrant palette told stories of resilience, of laughter and tenacity, igniting connection among the audience. They weren't just observing fashion, they were witnessing her rebirth. Memories of Clara's disdain and doubt faded into the backdrop, replaced by a chorus of appreciation cascading through the audience. In the midst of applause, what struck Sarah wasn't just approval but the connection she felt. The intimacy of sharing her story became overwhelming. She had successfully redefined the poor girl narrative, and the resonance shifted from merely showing fashion to engaging hearts and minds. Sarah realized this wasn't an endpoint but a catalyst. The unveiling ignited a desire to expand her artistry further along her journey. After the presentation, a wave of congratulations washed over her. Thomas approached, his eyes glimmering with pride. "You were remarkable," he said, sincerity wrapping around each word. "You brought your heart to life." Those words settled like a warm embrace, gently affirming her journey. "Thank you for pushing me to be authentic," she replied, her smile anchored in genuine belief. As the crowd shifted and dispersed, a familiar figure emerged from the throng. Clara. Unlike before, there was no icy disdain in her demeanor. Instead, there was recognition, even respect. "You've done well, Sarah. Your growth is impressive," she admitted, her voice devoid of sarcasm. In that moment, Sarah felt the weight of unresolved rivalry lift. This wasn't just an acknowledgement, it was a recognition of her courage to transform. "I appreciate that, Clara." "It's been a journey," Sarah said, feeling a sense of closure. They were no longer rivals, they were two artists, each embracing their unique path. The confrontation had shifted from conflict into a shared space of respect and authenticity. Clara's presence was no longer a shadow but a testament to the resolve that had blossomed in Sarah. As the evening wound down, Sarah reflected on the transformative power of embracing vulnerability. She had stood in the spotlight, declaring her narrative with confidence, and it reverberated not only within her but also beyond, shaping how others perceived her. Empowerment had flourished from the decisions she made, from confronting the insecurities that sought to confine her. Now, she envisioned not just one showcase but a series, the beginning of a movement grounded in authenticity, resilience, and creativity. There was much to conquer, but every step was charged with purpose. Sarah had etched her name on the canvas of creativity, each stitch symbolizing the strength she embodied. She had achieved not only professional recognition but a profound personal evolution that shaped her identity as a designer. The fog had lifted, and the horizon shimmered with promise, revealing a world ripe for exploration. This was her moment, not defined by others but sculpted by the fires of her journey. She had reclaimed her narrative. Now, she could inspire others to embrace their own, forging paths through adversity. Each thread of her story was now an integral part of a larger tapestry, woven with intention and heart, and Sarah was ready to step confidently into her future. In this journey of personal achievement and professional success, Sarah discovered that her smile had always held greater power than any stunning outfit. She could inspire not just through designs but through the authenticity that radiated from within. Steps forward often came with challenges, henceforth the commitment forged was clear. She would embrace each one, transforming them into her very own masterpiece. If Sarah could weave her dreams into reality, it was time for you to take note of your own journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.